It is for 4 minutes away. Doing pretty well. How about you? Yeah.
Sorry about that out of the blue. I was having email problems today. Everything wound up in my junk mail folder for some reason, and I didn't have anything. I couldn't find exactly what we were talking about, but this is the closest thing I have.
Cool.
It covers all kinds of stuff, and it is your gift for the new year.
Thank you.
I
Thank you very
have
much.
done enough looking at those things over the years to where it was glued instead of bound, and so it was just falling apart. Years ago, I had it
Yeah.
reattached like that, so it doesn't open real well, but it's good information. They have, DNR, I found out, has done an updated version called Natural Communities of Georgia, I think, a few years ago, but I haven't yet found out whether it's still in print or not, so
This is cool.
we'll enjoy that. But
Yeah, this will be a great addition to.
it's a nice resource at times to look at.
Wow, look at this. This is cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of, Charlie Horton did a really good job in pulling together a lot of stuff and a lot of people. He was in Georgia State, which I had forgotten. Where he was, but he contracted DNR to use that.
Okay.
And it really,
Oh, this is awesome. Thank you so much.
sure, it's not the Athens environment or even the Piedmont, but it does those things and a lot of other stuff too. So
It's Georgia, and that's exactly what I want. So that's great. We'll see. I think it seemed like we'll meet for them.
you got some responses, I appreciate. I saw that Stacy's ex officio, Farrell, she's ex officio anyway.
Yeah.
I thought she couldn't come, but is Pam gonna be here? Do you know? I saw she was like the treasurer's report, but I didn't see her.
It seemed like it could have been a yes or no for her. But it sounded kind of like she wasn't going to come. She was sending that, and then she would add some more here in the short future. Got our treasurer's report here.
Yeah.
And the minutes from November, I guess we should probably approve those. Well, we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
That was one that I was out of town for the November one. That's how I started thinking, well, we've been talking about changing the number or the state of our meetings, and we had to talk about it at the Christmas party, and I thought I better check and see.
Yeah. Well, something interesting, I was actually looking through, we had a meeting earlier today. I met with Office of Sustainability.
Uh-huh.
And we were just chatting about the tree ordinance, and we got a response from Public Works. This was they sent us this and some of the changes that they made. And one really cool thing is like usually there's two different ways you can comply with like an alternative compliance method if you don't have enough conserved canopy on the site.
Uh-huh.
You can either the first option is to create a forest regeneration area where you plant out a bunch of trees. I'm talking like 200 plus per acre. And then if that isn't feasible, then you go down to where you add planted canopy in the development area. But it ends up being that we never use the forest regeneration area. We only use the planted canopy. But the change that they made, read that right there.
Yeah. I mean, that,
so it says right there that you're going to use forest regeneration areas.
yeah, that shall, I would take to mean.
Yeah.
In other words, does that then imply that will indeed be the way that any waiver is satisfied?
It has to be a forest regeneration area, or is it that if a forest regeneration area is used, then it will be in a common area? I think that's maybe
2 or 3 more lawyers.
Yeah. Yeah, but I saw that and I was like, wow, that's actually, that could be really good. That could be really good. So,
Now, when a regeneration area is used, if it were used, does that, and that high density planting, that I presume implies that you can plant
yeah,
smaller trees would be planted and there would be attrition over time. I mean, that's
most
the
likely.
idea.
Yeah, you're planting dense enough. I think
Overstocking kind of maybe.
we're still maybe a little understocked than with the numbers that they have. Wick told me that he thought that it might have been like invasive pressure that was really made it kind of infeasible to do the forest regeneration areas. I haven't pinned down Andrew Saunders on it and seen if he had ever seen someone use them, but I just don't think they've ever been utilized. So we'll see. But that's an interesting bit. That's going to be making a forest regeneration area actually work would be a really good thing to delve into if we try to make changes to the tree ordinance.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a great option.
Especially if it's something to actually consider. Maybe, well, they have to consider.
Well,
See that famous.
by the wording of it,
Yeah.
because really, the wording shows that if the area, if you're not able to fully or partially or wholly fulfill your conserved canopy requirement with a forest regeneration area, and the area is surrounded by impervious surfaces,
Yeah.
or cannot fit the requirements of a forest regeneration area, then you can do planted canopy. Additional planted
Some
canopy.
of the, apply that your first should be.
Always be forest regeneration.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, it doesn't happen. We shall see.
So I see our liaison is changing on us here.
Yeah, yeah, to,
Next to work with, Melissa.
of how,
I know her by name and that's all. I don't think we were. Yeah.
yeah, I know Andrew's worked with her in the past, but I've never come across
Carol
that.
seemed to imply that she's passionate about trees, so. Was pretty. She did have scheduling issues.
And here we go. Where is everyone?
Right now, I don't think we're making it more. Well, hey there, how are you? Happy New Year.
You. You have a good holiday.
Hectic, busy, yeah, a good one.
Friends and
Like the
everything.
kids and grandkids, I mean, we had them showing up in waves, we had about three celebrations at the house.
Mhm.
One of them, almost everybody was there, and the others we had individual groups, so it was a good combination.
That's quality feeling.
Just gonna sit here nonchalant until, other people come. Step up to the.
Well, Sophie had to in the gate closed, so.
Analyst.
Yeah, so she went one way.
When I came in, so we,
I think,
good.
yeah,
I think at 4 o'clock it closed.
So you
It was close before.
it was before, yeah, it was a couple, because I
A
turned around.
likely story.
I promise, I turned around and it was like, maybe it's at a different place. Like, maybe you're starting to piss me off and then I checked my email and
That's what I
am I, was it today? Is it, am I going crazy?
Exactly what I was thinking. So I pulled out and I went to the paint place.
Yep, that's what I did.
And I was like, well, let me go check my emails and see if.
Sorry, y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I don't think I've ever seen it closed. I don't think I was ever given a code. I was like, maybe it'll just open. I was like, no, it's not
that
open.
wouldn't make much sense. I mean, it'll let you out, but it won't let you in.
I was
So I
like, do I
pulled
want to
in, I was like, well, let's see what happens. And then it was
Say the
pretty
password.
awkward, yeah.
Gotta say the password.
I'll try
Brandon
it.
entered.
As long as my truck doesn't hang out into the
Well,
road.
The direction I come from, they give you a pretty long turning runway, so if you're coming from the other, you sit out there in the middle of the road.
You don't have any trouble getting in though, huh?
It was.
I didn't hear
I was
just
bit
before it
nervous.
closed, I guess, but. The last meeting that happened too, Wick was like sitting out there and closed on him. But I think other people had made it in before that. I just need to always go over there and turn the key before the meeting.
Cause that's never, I mean, that was the first time that it happened. I've come late.
So you have access to a place where you can.
Yeah, there's a
lock
lot
it
in the
open,
lobby. We
kind
can
of override it.
hidden away.
Everyone's holidays, all that.
You're-
It was good. It was, my little one got sick on Christmas. She's 5. She just turned 5. Well, actually, she accompanied me to my Christmas party in Charleston for the company I work for down there. And we got into this tiny little nice bar. And she's playing with the girl I work with, has a little girl. They're having a great time. And I don't feel so good. I figure out that she just grew up all.
Sound like commercial property. 'Cause it seems like, they could just, take all the trees out and just put 3 in. They have any canopy.
Yeah, everybody does. but,
Except for
industrial.
agricultural residential at 0, but this is all the zoning requirements. So like RS 15 for the site, 60%. Total tree canopy cover and 30% would be conserved. That's the big kind of marked up version of it. I think we have quorum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Very cool.
He's a really great guy. Was. He was totally sunspot effects on the winter. Hours and days and years looking at sunspot effects on the winter.
All right, Joel. Well, Jesse is out, and she is going to be our valiant leader for a while. Mary Songster stepped down. Her father took a turn for the worse, dementia-wise, and just didn't have time to do it anymore. And Jessie did say that she'd be willing to kind of continue on what she's been doing, provided she doesn't have to do any more than what she's doing. I was happy to oblige her in that. I think it's works out well, unless somebody else wants to step up to the plate. But this could be a fairly quick meeting, could take a while, it just depends on how much we want to talk. The other things that have happened, Melissa Link has changed over to be our liaison. So Carol Myers is no longer here, or as our liaison at least. So expect that change probably next meeting. Polly had something that she wanted to bring up about education committee, but I don't think that's going to happen. Maybe what we should do is move to accept the minutes from November. I've got 2 printed copies. One's in that folder there exposed. The other one's sitting right here. If maybe y'all want to look over it, or we can go ahead and vote on that.
I apologize, but Jesse bought 9. Can someone get free?
Yeah, so Jesse bought 9 trees, little small containers for us to plant in that in the area along the carriage lane, the Oconee Greenway. Leisure Services is okay with that location. I'm getting a utility locate. That's for our MLK Day planting. Considering they're really small trees, she was hoping to get 12 of them was her ultimate goal. She's doing like viburnum and what were the other 2? Plum and another very small canopy sized tree. She was hoping someone else could try to get or try to source 3 more container trees. Okay.
Do you,
She was wondering if Phil had any more of the tree that owns itself.
Do not.
Okay.
Yeah, those way too low. These are now.
You think you might know where you could get some, or?
do you have any, I mean, native, with 7 gallon or what?
Yeah, I think it's anywhere from 7 to 15 gallons, somewhere in there.
I will, you may also, I was like, a couple of the nurseries work with, I can just see what they
Okay.
have, maybe I'll.
I know Chris Aubrey has some nice.
Ooh.
7.
Oh.
This is Prince Serviceberry.
The Count of Serviceberry.
3 of those?
Sure, and I don't mind showing you.
Okay, you can go.
Yeah, a lot of times he'll be willing, he'd be willing to donate him a chat, and why don't I give him a call? I used to live across the street from him,
Okay,
and he.
yeah. Oh, okay. So well, at the moment, but I can. Yeah, I'm happy to.
So Mary, you'll check and see if we can get another few.
What the first person I thought of.
Who'd you say you were going to talk to?
Chris Aubrey, he has Breeze Arbor and.
Cool.
He usually doesn't have, he has small, like 3 or 7 gallons usually,
Cool.
but he does get occasionally, he gets gross, or bumps things up.
Okay. Very good. So Wick, Jeannie, and I all had a meeting with sustainability today, trying to talk about tree ordinance and the direction that we want to go in. Now that we've been introduced to the potential changes to the tree ordinance, or the one that the planning department wanted to.
For Stephanie, should we do an introduction?
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Since we were.
Stephanie was there as well.
Was there.
Sorry about that, Stephanie. And yeah, and she said, hey, we should have an introduction for everyone because she doesn't really know everybody here. And I think it'd be a great opportunity to do that. I think it makes sense. So, Stephanie, if you want to start.
Sorry. So I'm Stephanie. So Stephanie Green, I am Clark County. I'm in the office, facility office. I can't say her name. But I'm the ecological resource coordinator in the office. So, yeah, here. And so I am stepping into the street council meeting. Mike Wharton would have been the staff for the sustainability office, but it's time frame for him. I'm kind of sitting on the staff, and then dabble with a little bit of everything. Yeah, so I don't know a lot of people at the table, but I was going to get different, go through different things, or at least I know. And I haven't been around a long enough. So, yeah, so I think last meeting I was here and comments and.
There she is again.
So I came here more.
That's why the gate was locked.
Yes, I was
Yeah.
sitting around the
Keep that blonde out.
I've already been told you you guys are like, there's that strange redhead woman with the binoculars. She keeps popping up. It didn't work. So evidently.
I'm Sean Darren. So for experience served on
Away, and I'm a garden designer. For now, or 5 maybe, I don't know. It's like the time where I'm settled there. But I was going to step off a year early, but then decided to see it through because we've had some inactive members. I love this. I like this place. Yeah, okay.
You can do it.
I'm the president, but, so right now I'm on the promotions committee, which would do a social media.
Queen jobs right now, not. Mary, now, let's come on at the same time because it sounds like she's been forever enough.
For me, forever and a day. I'm just
We'll get through. Trees for tomorrow.
I'm not so much, I'll just say for pressure. I came at the same time, Phil, and so also forever and a day, 7 years.
We met earlier, I'm Wick, I'm the arborist in the planning department. I have been here as long as I've been on my job. Same as Mateo since March. Don't use
Yeah. Yeah, about like that. Hey, Stephanie, my name is Mateo. I'm the community forestry coordinator.
Oh, hi, I'm Jamie. It's nice to meet you.
Board, board. I've been on the council now for I think 2 years. And here and then. Thank you for hearing.
But you take that too.
No. I just felt like if I'm a friend,
Recognize.
the blonde, whatever. It's
When you say Mary Songster stepped down, she stepped off entirely.
I believe so. Yeah, that's the way that she made it seem. And that might be a permanent thing. I don't know. I can't see her staying away for long if things changed with their family situation. But yeah, she was just going to step away from it. I removed her from the email listing just so that she's not bombarded with our emails. But we'll see. But I mean, so in the last meeting, we talked about that mass grading that Wick brought up, that planning would like to bring up to the planning commission, committee, planning commission. And then they would vote on it and then possibly go to mayor and commission. So sustainability, planning, landscape, we all talked today, trying to come to some ideas what we want to do. And I think from sustainability's viewpoint, we probably should try to tackle a large scale modification of the tree ordinance and start working towards that. I know in the past, CTC has done some policy stuff. I think that was probably Mary Songster, though. Who else is on the policy committee? I know Lauren, you are, and Patrick was. Okay.
We have new members that we were
We
interviewing.
interviewed some people. Did they ever get?
Well, we have to put it up to mayor and commission. So, and then they have to vote on it.
You have to get on their agenda then.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's usually the whole.
So we have interview information, or at least I don't know if I got it from everyone who sat in on Miss. Yeah,
Julie Duncan.
yeah, lives across the road. And I figure we should probably do both of the interviews, send both of them to mayor and commission at the same time. So I guess tomorrow I'll follow up with y'all and try to get that documentation.
Yeah,
And send it.
just reach out to Miss Jean.
Okay.
She can take care of that, help you with that.
So there were just 2 applicants.
We've only done 2 interviews that I know of.
Yeah.
The other one was a while back. I don't actually.
Nunnally Benzing. Yeah.
There you go.
I've spoken with her since then. I actually did an assessment on a large tree in her backyard, and I think she's pretty accommodating and just understands it'll take a little while, but
We'll likely have 3.
well, Nunnally and Miss Duncan are the 2 that we've interviewed. I don't know of any others though. It's tough to type minutes while leading it. Okay, so I talked to Andrew Saunders earlier, a few minutes ago, and really what he recommended is that
Do we take notes? Helpful, just
I think I got it. Hopefully, I've got a recording, nothing else, so I can rewatch us.
Wig has volunteered. It was denied.
So I think CTC should have a letter, an advisory letter regarding the change, the requests for change. But I think we need to have a strongly worded goal. What are we trying to achieve by not agreeing with the removal of per lot requirements? And I think we could come up with that pretty quickly, and um, it be, how should we say, appealing, or I don't know how to say it. We can come up with something appropriate and timely. Basically mentioning, well, we want to ensure quality conserved canopy, ensure that the intent of the tree ordinance is kept. Because we have the intent of the tree ordinance.
I didn't want to interrupt.
Go right ahead.
I can't, okay, thank you. And it's not that we're looking at it to rewrite it. It's just enforcing more, and Mary was pretty much on the same page of clarifying, and one of her biggest goals, I remember from coming to those meetings, was that all entities and departments within ACs were working together. Are we following the same protocol as this group right here? Was everyone following the same VM? And that's really what we discussed this morning. We're actually going to be trying to get a meeting in the next weeks of the different departments so that we're all on the same page. Do we all have the same goals? Are we all working together? And it's not just us, it's for buy-in for everybody. Are we setting a good example for our contractors throughout the county? So we're all working on.
Yeah, it was in a, I want to clarify, like,
Yeah.
was it sustainability saying, we're gonna rewrite the tree ordinance, or we even recommend it? We just, multiple people, we recognize that there's some things that we probably would like to change, like, not us, but like, we as a group, and so then what do we do to start that? And or do we address one thing and then have the bigger conversation, as Gina said, so that then as we move forward, it's not a surprise to anybody when we bring up some of the other stuff, and then we can be a little more concerted in how we address some of the things we'd like to see change. But yeah, that getting everybody on the same page. And it's not just this ordinance, it's also
This is all for development. So what happens if the whole development's built out and then somebody decides they want to clear cut their lot?
I mean, those are parts in the ordinance that like should be addressed or can't be
Right.
addressed, yeah.
Because if you're doing it by a whole development instead of by single lots, then what happens then?
Right now, but I think, so there's this ordinance and then there's like the tree ordinance, right? And so we were saying like, it wasn't sustainably saying y'all need to change the tree ordinance. It was like, hey, we all recognize there's little pieces like the tree list needs a little bit of tweaking, these parts like that haven't been done in the past years. And yeah, I mean, looking at like what the lot versus this issue is one of the things, and it's just what happens to have like given us the impetus to like
Sure.
jump down in.
Well, and I mean, we can't deny that
Yeah.
there's the developers going out there developing
Yeah.
big areas.
Absolutely.
And so we have to address it.
Yeah.
And this one, I think this morning, correct me if I'm wrong here, but we are also looking to gather all the facts. This is something that happened during the pandemic. There are new people in positions, and so when we were talking, some of it was just about how did this happen? What is the history of it? Like just today, I found out it was the mayor's, like this was a mayor's directive, like I want this, fix something about it. I don't know if that's proper terminology. That is one story from one person. And so when we all came to this and when I introduced it, I had no backstory or I had no history of it. I'm new in this position. And so part of what we talked about this morning is for this one particular ordinance is getting all that backstory, getting that development, as well as getting all the departments, and then we can relay that information to y'all, I think, which will facilitate less of like, hey, and more of a, oh, okay,
Instead of.
I see what's going on there, and so that's what we're going to try to do in this meeting or meetings.
Yeah, it'll be meetings probably.
Y'all are familiar with that.
So kind of tangential to this, Wick and I have discussed potential changes to the tree code for a while, but there's in technical standards, where it kind of lays out, what we have, let's say for a forested area, that's a tree protected area that somebody is conserving. There's a few things where that has to be, each area shall be at least 2,500 square feet. Soil should be aerated to a depth of 8 inches. There's a different one. Forested area, 2,500 square feet, at least 50% contiguous. Each area should be wide in any one dimension, right? We have all these things. Then there's one that says areas dominated by kudzu or Chinese privet will not be eligible for tree canopy cover credit. And in the past, we haven't really done much, but you were talking with Brad recently about changing our invasive or tree species list, right? But the potential for us not to count privet infested areas as conserved canopy.
Well, yes and no. So he had been contacted by, I guess, get my story completely wrong. I'm not a details person. But, and y'all may, are you on this? The invasives. And so there's like different, I'm hearing it from the planner's perspective, and I'm hearing it from sustainability or and looking at the ordinance. And so there's different interpretations of what will happen if certain changes happen. For example, Brad said, hey, if we enforce this invasive policy that you can't count conserved canopy unless it's clear of invasives, his view was such that on larger parcels, it would discourage conservation. So for example, if you only needed to conserve 10% on a 10-acre parcel, that's 1 acre, right? Well, if the developer doesn't need to use the whole parcel, they might conserve 40%, which yes, is changeable into the future. That if they revisit the tree management plan, they can always go lower, right? Say, hey, wait, still above my 10%, right? And at 30 and 20 until they get to 10. Brad's view was that when changes are made to something like this, then the wording needs to be carefully constructed. For example, if you said maintained into perpetuity, invasive free, they might say, well, it's a hell of a lot easier to go immediately down to the 10% and take out that 30 I was going to conserve, because I'm sure as hell not going to maintain it after 1 or 2 or 3 years. Now, that's one person's opinion. So
can I borrow some context? Because I think it's been a little, I think there's different things that we talked about.
well, this is,
Yeah, because the tree ordinance
yeah,
was not that wasn't the policy that's in LRC. It's not the ordinance that's actually being that to be changed. It's just that when we start talking, so the question was raised about, so that is his concern. That is the concern. Well, you can't say that all the basis has to be taken off because then it increases the cost of it. That was the concern, but that is not actually what was being discussed. So what's being discussed currently is that, so a very specific issue. Started with a very specific issue. There is bamboo in 5 points in somebody's yards, and it's going into someone else's yard. And that person has gone through codes enforcement to try and get it taken care of, and that has not led to a endpoint that they elect. And so they went to a commission meeting. And at the commission meeting, they brought it up, and then it was directed that the LRC and staff would look at changing the weed ordinances and our invasives to see if that would, how that would work. So if you look at our weed ordinances, so it only talks, the reason why bamboo is not able to be enforced, and that is because it is very specifically exempted as an ornamental. And so the conversation started there, and the staff and the LRC, the goal and the commission that was given, like, you will do this, was to look at that issue and to look at invasives within accounting for definition and our policy regarding invasives. So that's what we did. And so in the process of what we're doing and present information to the LRC to say, okay, well, how do you address this issue?
one of the questions raised in the course of the conversations and educating the commission about like, these are what we mean, like, we don't even have a definition of invasive in the code. So weed is not a great definition of invasive. So what is it invasive? And so the best way to define that invasive species and then look at that is, so there's very definite, so we've come up with a definition, like it's well understood across the board. Like this is what an invasive species, and then taking it a step forward and say, so we already have a state entity and organization that gives category ranks of invasive species, right? It's going through some changing right now. So there's category 1s, 2s, 3s, and 4s. And that is also a process that is pretty much Southeast. Like you can go to any state in the Southeast and say, hey, it's a category 2 for the state, and people in that working field know what that means. So we're not inventing the wheel, like we're not reinventing. So we from there. So part of the conversation was then, hey, we need to really make sure so part of the conversation, well, can we just say you cannot plant any categories, commission's question, can we go as far as that you cannot plant any of the category 1s, 2s, pick your order of species, or you can't have those and on properties or plant those. Plant was the question. And then another question was raised about, well, we have to be really careful because does that conflict with the tree species list, right? And so I was tasked with making sure. And so I pulled our tree species list that y'all have worked on, and I looked at all the category 1s, 2s, and 3s that are actually found in Athens-Clarke County, because a lot of those species we don't have in this area in the Piedmont, right? And so using, hey, I just know the area, and using my naturalists and other things, like these are ones that at least have been reported in general. So the only 3 ones that were cause of consternation were Brad repair, calorie repair, which probably should look at anyways, right? Princess tree is a category 1, and it's only listed as conserve on the tree species list. So like, and then there was another one. So that drew the tree ordinance into that discussion. And then there is a question raised about like, well, what can we do from a development point of view? Like, this big picture, right? Like, well, we could like step forward into invasive species protocol in the county and say, hey, on new developments, like you have to get rid of these. I will say this, the fact that exists in the ordinance was never actually brought up. So that's news to me, and that's my ignorance on the ordinances. If I had known that, probably, I would have already been saying it. But so that's the kind of the background there on that. So it is it's a conversation that's happening. And so, but then we've also we got way out, right, on invasives. Like there's these big picture ideas we'd love to do on invasives. But like the tree, and then there's discussion, well, so then the commission's like, well, and staff, like, there's this idea that you shouldn't get conserved canopy credit for invasive trees, right? But like, how many invasive trees does that amount to? Really, it's very minimal when you look at trees. Now, when you look at privet and that kind of stuff, that changes the game completely. But that actually, in my mind, canopy cover is canopy cover, right? It's not shrub layer cover. And so that's an interesting take on the conversation, but that's the backstory is so with canopy cover, but then I also know that no one's going in those conserved canopy areas and identifying trees out to species. It's canopy cover. Like, it's not like, well, you have one tree in there that you're not getting credit for, but the rest, because it's done in group. Now, if it's a single tree conservation, then definitely maybe we should kind of toe the line on you really shouldn't get credit. Because it's not really, this is my opinion at that point, really. It's not really serving the point. But so there's the big picture, but then where this is settling on the LRC Legislative Review Committee and this one issue going back to bamboo, 5 points. How do you look at weeds? Definition for invasive. So that's where we stand right now, and looking at that policy and changing it so that there is a code enforcement way to actually look at if your neighbor has an invasive species, they have to keep it on their land. And that we're the ones where you can, I can't prove point of origin for privet, right? I can for bamboo in most cases, right? And also if it's on your lot, maybe you didn't plant it there, but it's the same as animal enforcement, right? If the dog shows up in your yard and you feed it and it says it's now yours, that's how we do it with animal And so like if the weeds show up in your yard and you don't ask the person to keep it out, like as far as the building stolens and runners, then hey, it's yours now. And then if it crosses into your other neighbor's yard, well, you should have kept it in your yard kind of thing. So that's where that kind of is going. So it's way more, and I'm sorry, sidetracked the meeting, but like those are the kind of interconnecting points. I think we're just getting to the point where a lot of these issues are interconnecting and they're all coming to the head. And it's interesting, and it's also kind of like, but yeah.
It's complex.
Ultimately with local nurseries and big box stores, because they're also selling stuff.
And that's part of the conversation.
They're selling Iliacs and Mangina and
That
Sunshine
is-
Privet, which is
yeah.
just gonna come up with.
And that's part of the commissioners asked us to come up with a list of opportunities and ways we could educate. And we could both educate landowners and personal, but also educate, big box stores and like, and they're like, I've experienced with businesses in different areas where we, it takes on the ground, but so we've been working on fleshing that out. So yeah, you're absolutely right.
I think, no, I mean, I started that, I mentioned it because I wanted to have a broader discussion on it. I think there are plenty of tree species that are on our list that are ill-suited or, not exactly, I don't think fit the way that they're portrayed. Like calorie pear is on the conserve. So I think there are some easy changes that we could make, and it's not something that requires mayor and commission to vote on. All it says in the code is that the community forestry coordinator will notify mayor and commission of changes to the tree species list. So we can make changes as we see fit and then notify them. So I was hoping to maybe make a shared document or something like that, where we could all put comments or, our potential changes. Maybe I'll just send out the tree species list, an easily editable one for everyone. And then, if you've got time, you look at it, just take a look at it and see if there's anything that jumps out at you, and we can compile a list of changes. But I think it's well timed with the talk of invasive stuff and,
This is the recommended trees to plant,
yes and no.
where
Yeah.
development, like in neighborhood.
Very often a developer will look to that, if maybe they're not from around here, because that happens occasionally, but a lot of times, like, I tried to get someone to specify a basswood for a street tree. And they came back and they said, well, that's not as one of your options for trees on road frontage. So, or they said, oh, well, it's actually in the conserved status, right? No additional plantings. And it's basswood, linden tree. Why isn't it planted? But so sometimes it keeps us from planting, or keeps LA from actually saying, okay, I'll specify it. So there's little things like that I think could make a big difference. It is like a recommendation. A lot of times I think those landscape architects will look at it and they'll say, okay, well, I got to do parking lot trees. Well, let me run down that column and see what I've got for a large or a medium or whatever. So they definitely do that. Yeah. So I'll send something out to everyone, and we can kind of work on that. I think it's an easy thing that we can all do and kind of put our ideas together and then make those changes fairly quickly at a
I
meeting.
think we've done that the time I've been on the council.
Really?
So I think it'd be good to do that.
There are many,
Changes over time.
Okay.
there are probably at least 3 changes we know of right now, and probably 3 others that we could make just with the species list.
That sounds like a nice
That would-
doable project
Yeah.
that wouldn't take too long.
That would impact positive way what is in the plans.
Yeah. Yeah, most definitely. All right. So
You wanna try to vote in the changes next? Or discuss the changes next month and vote them in the month?
yeah, that might be the best option. Just depends on how much action we get from everyone in the next month. If there was a bunch of interest and we got them, then potentially maybe we could vote them in next week, or next month. Whoa, hey now, chomping at the bit to make these changes, y'all. I've obliged you all to another meeting. It'll be while we're off for MLK Day. How about that?
So, does anyone know off the top of their head when that MLK Day planting is? 15th?
This is.
Yeah, there's no, yeah, it's not.
I'm gonna ask Jesse to reach out to everyone with time and everything. Make sure we're all on the same page.
No. It's the November meeting, and so I'm not real tight on the location, so we're specific.
I can send out like an aerial photography, photo of exactly where. It's not too tough. It's like 450 feet away from the roundabout on Carriage Lane. So it's not tough to get there. I'll just send everyone a visual reference and make it really easy.
Do we know what time we're gonna do it?
That's a good question. I think I might.
Yeah, outside volunteers, so the work time is between 9 and 10 and 12, and the kickoff, I believe. So like that
Right.
thing, that 2 hour, the actual
Okay.
is between 10 and 12.
Yeah, that's true. It should be real wet. Gonna rain
It's been
3
raining
inches.
tomorrow and Friday.
um,
But this don't run off tomorrow, will soak in on.
What's the wind situation?
Yeah. Tomorrow's bad.
30 to 40. Higher if we get them. And
It's gonna be one of those where it. It's me.
It's a big storm. They're getting snow up in Wisconsin from the same storm, so.
The whole east.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a big one.
I mean, typically just.
I know.
Less than.
I don't use those names. That's a Weather Channel
I'll only do that.
advertising.
Advertising, that's good.
I think it is, but yeah, it's just pokey. It's pokey advertising for the Weather Channel, so.
Well, while I'm thinking of it, can we make a motion to approve the minutes from last meeting?
I'll move.
Are you trying to push that?
Second, okay, so all those in favor, aye. Any nays? So,
Let's get something, an action item down, right?
gotta have something done, yeah. So 5, 2. Second there. Does anyone else have anything? How about that? Yeah,
I
sure.
sent out the treasurer's report, so.
You did, it's printed out right there.
We got $100 that Mary Songster collected at one of our, the forest bathing or one of the other, no, I think it was the tree identification. walk.
Very cool.
So she got that, and then we had a couple of small donations that appeared Christmas. So that's, feel free to put in more.
Giving Tuesday. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, that's
Give
fine.
every year.
And I have 2 things I need to do in January. So I need to get you the annual financial report, because has to be submitted to the commission. And you'll get it by the 25th, because that's when we count for the rest of the month.
You said it's called the annual financial
It's
report?
the annual report, and the financial is 1 page of that report.
Okay,
But you should see previous versions that Rodney did, just writing what we did this past year.
okay.
And I also need to redo the 5013C, C3, thing, which I can do online. And I
Okay.
always do it in January. So that'll be done by next month,
Okay.
and that's on there.
Say, if anybody ever sees article, appropriate for give pages. Done, we haven't been very active, but out on story. Put a plug for the, so does everybody that shows up need to register for this event?
So, I don't, as far as, so the way we're doing it, so, cause we're co-sponsoring one. So like the two leaders, like. I'm not registering because I'm a side leader. But we open, like all the rest of the. So, the one where you could do. Could register. I believe. So if it's full, then you don't have to register, but you might still want to show up and help everybody. And if it's not full, go and register,
But I'll
because it goes into the, yeah, if you want to put on your website as a link, I would go see how full it is.
When you registered, did it show how many signed up, or there still open spaces?
It should tell you, yeah.
Okay, so in passing, Theo and I talked about there are two things that we plan to ask them, okay? And,
Leisure Services was supposed to fund those.
sorry,
Leisure Services was going to fund those because we had to move them because of the some of them that's still not in the area.
well, I mean,
That's
these
sort
were,
of thought of them.
so, I mean, these were, are you aware of the ones that I'm seeing them?
Yeah, it's the same spot that we planted one, remember? And then they were like, oh, there's an art installation going here. We tried to move it, and it broke, and
Well, I mean, I think the two were original.
They didn't get.
They did not get-
Right, I know what you're talking about.
yeah, you're right, Sean, you're right.
Unfortunately. It doesn't have. I don't know too much. So, you know, Theo and I talked about the option of planning something smaller. I don't know, prior to something as big. Did you?
Well,
It's on the Firefly Trail.
Oh, put it here.
I was thinking it was the, in your,
Oh, right.
go, that last year.
So yeah, like Rock.
Yeah, by the fort.
Bill Road.
Sure.
Urban and walk down the trail.
So I'd be glad to procure these, you know, like I know one.
Are the dead trees still there? Do they come back?
They are.
I would imagine that I could.
I tried with my hand to see if I could get it done, but it's too heavy. It won't go over just by hand. But probably just a.
I know somebody that thinks, so, and that, I mean, I can.
So you think about some container plants, I think it'd be much more. Get done.
So I can.
Do you ever go to, I mean, how big, like 15 gallons?
And I have, that's kind of what I was thinking.
So. Kind of hard to find that.
I think we'll want to make sure to put cages around them. Their deer pressure will be pretty high, most likely on that size.
Will that be part of the install? And the cables up?
I think we should make it part of it. Yeah, if we wait to come back, it's really easy for us to forget about it. We do it at the time.
Watering bags.
We can do that. We've got gator bags for landscape management. They've worked pretty well. I think they work pretty well. But with a smaller tree also, there's a lot less of a requirement for water. They're not nearly as thirsty, so it's not as quite as much of a worry to keep them well irrigated early on. But we still want to make sure that they're not dying from drought early. So
Especially if we get them in the ground.
Yeah.
It's been pretty wet this winter, so.
Thank you. I mean, if these are small, we're planting small trees on Monday, is that right?
yeah, they're all small.
And if I could get these trees, you know, they.
Well, about,
So, yeah.
Okay. Anybody got anything else? Motion to adjourn. Alright. Any nays? Let's just ask that one. No nays. All right. All right. So no, all yays, no nays.
Oh, yeah, no days.
5:03. It has been noted. 5:03 p.m. is when we commenced.
Just sounds like that.